What if, on the day meant to seal your forever, the person pinning your veil was secretly untying your entire life? This is my story, Ray, and it begins with a wedding that should have been my dream, but became my betrayal. Before we dive in, if you love stories of betrayal, revenge, and justice served cold, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode of Letters to Ray. If you asked me what I wanted from life, I would have shown you a page from the little book I kept under my pillow as a girl, creased edges, perfume-stained paper, doodles of gowns I couldn't pronounce. I would have read you the list I wrote in blue ink at 14. A love that knows my name before the world does. A home with light in every room. A wedding where my mother's earrings catch the sun. And my sister by my side, pinning my veil, whispering, "You're safe." I built my future like a prayer you repeat until it sounds like a promise. When David came, he seemed like the answer that had learned to walk. He had a voice that gentled a room, a hand that never trembled when decisions turned into numbers, and the kind of smile people trust before they verify. He didn't just bring flowers, he brought vision. He spoke about partnership the way other men speak about holidays. We didn't date, we drafted. Budgets, timelines, filings, launches. We learned that building an empire could feel like building a language only two people speak. And yes, I loved him. Not because of the money people count when they mention our names, but because I believed I had found a man whose ambition would never cost me tenderness. My sister loved him, too, in the way families love a new hymn, quickly, loudly, as if they always knew the words. She became my mirror during the planning, held up the dresses against my body, circled dates on calendars, taught me which white looked like cloud and which white looked like paper. She said I was too practical and she would be the dreamer for both of us. I let her be. It felt good to rest inside someone else's excitement. We didn't choose a ballroom, not at first. I wanted a courtyard behind an old house with peeling paint, the kind that tells you love can live through seasons. We strung up borrowed lanterns to test the light. We stood under the jacaranda and argued about chairs. We laughed at the cat that decided the aisle runner was hers. Even now, if I close my eyes, I can smell the citrus and hear my sister clapping once, sharply, when she liked an idea. She said the courtyard felt like a secret we were sharing with God. But weddings aren't just secrets, they're parades. My father reminded us of that gently, then firmly. He said people would come with cameras and expectations, better to give them a place that knows how to hold both. He kissed my forehead, pressed a check into my palm, and spoke like a blessing. Let your day be big enough to carry your future. So yes, we chose the place with high ceilings and polished floors, the one where even whispers echo. But I kept my courtyard in my heart. I decided I would marry him twice, once for the world, once for the girl who kept lists in a blue notebook. Those months moved like a perfect song. My mother fussed over beads, my aunt argued about head ties, my father handled the guest list like it was a chessboard. David listened, agreed, delegated. He had a gift for calming storms before they started. Every evening he'd call just to ask what color my shoes were, and I'd laugh because he sounded like a man trying to memorize me. And my sister, my first friend, became the center of the choreography. She labeled boxes, negotiated with stubborn vendors, sent me voice notes at 2 a.m. with ideas I always liked because she made them sound like inevitabilities. She called the florist darling and the caterer sweetheart, and somehow, everyone delivered more than we paid for. People said, "You're lucky to have her." I didn't argue. Luck is just another word for having a person who thinks of the thing before you know you'll need it. The dress came on a Tuesday, carried in by two women who spoke softly to the fabric as if it could hear. I stood on a low platform while they circled me with pins. My sister sat cross-legged on the floor, chin in palm, giving instructions to a seamstress twice her age as if it were the most natural thing in the world. When the seamstress left to fetch a new needle, my sister rose, moved behind me, and smoothed the bodice with both hands. "Breathe," she said. "The dress belongs to you, don't belong to it." I breathed. The satin sighed. For a second I thought I saw us as children in our mother's mirror again. She with a towel tied around her waist like a princess, me insisting princes were unnecessary if a girl had a library card. We had always been different in the way sisters are different, but share a language anyway. She once told me I built houses and she built windows. We promised to live in the same street. The final week was a procession of tiny miracles. A storm threatened and then apologized. The caterer found 3 extra burners. The jeweler called to say he'd finished resetting my mother's stones in time. I took these as omens because hope will turn anything into a sign. The morning of the wedding, the house woke before the sun did. My mother sang under her breath while steam curled from the iron. My aunt's laughter came down the hall like bracelets. The photographer hovered like a polite ghost. I sat very still while someone drew eyeliner onto a future I believed in. My sister slipped into the room with the veil draped over her arms. No knock, just the easy authority of someone who has always belonged to my before and after. Face the light, she said, and turned my chair toward the window. She shook the veil once, white thunder, and it fell like a blessing across her hands. She pinned it to my hair with a care that felt like prayer. Close your eyes, she whispered, and I did. Her fingers were cool. The comb clicked into place. There, she said. Now look at me. I did. In the reflection, I saw 2 women who had learned to borrow each other's bravery, me with certainty, her with sparkle. She smiled, not wide, just enough to place courage in my chest. You look like the promise, she said. I reached for her hand and squeezed. Thank you, I said. For everything. She squeezed back. Always. In the weeks after the wedding, David was everything I thought he'd be. Charming at dinners, attentive in public, quick to answer questions with that calm tone that made investors trust him. But behind closed doors, cracks formed in ways that didn't look like betrayal, not at first. They looked like exhaustion, like forgetfulness, like a man carrying too much weight. He missed a dinner with my family because of an urgent meeting. He left early from our weekend trip, citing numbers that needed balancing. He forgot to call when he said he would, sending short texts instead. Busy. Sorry, tomorrow. Ordinary things, Ray, the kind you forgive 1,000 times, because no one teaches us that neglect can be as sharp as a blade. And when I noticed, when I dared to voice the ache, my sister was there before the echo of my words had even faded. She became a balm, but not for me, for him. Don't stress him, she'd say, her hand brushing mine as though I were the one being unreasonable. He's under pressure. You should be grateful he's working so hard. Grateful. The word tasted like ash, but she made it sound like gold. I wanted to believe her. Who wouldn't want to believe that love was simply busy, not absent? That disappointment was just a symptom of ambition, not neglect? Each time David faltered, she stepped in with her polished sympathy. She brought me tea when I sulked, shared stories of how all men get distracted sometimes, and whispered, "That's why you're lucky to have me. I'll help you carry it." And I, blind, hopeful, let her. My father noticed too, but he saw something entirely different. He praised her endlessly, his voice heavy with approval that left me half proud, half uneasy. "Your sister is such a blessing to your marriage," he'd say at family gatherings, clapping David's back and smiling at me like he'd delivered a gift. "She'll help you hold him. Hold him." As though David were a prize too heavy for one woman's arms, and my sister's hands were ordained to steady him. Ray, I heard the poison in those words, but it was dressed like blessing. And when poison wears a ribbon, sometimes you drink it gladly. It wasn't betrayal yet. Not the kind people recognize. It was smaller, slower, like someone dimming the light in a room one shade at a time until you can't remember what brightness looked like. Then came the dinner. A gathering of family, close friends, and business allies, one of those evenings where laughter sits too loud on polished cutlery, and everyone pretends the room is warmer than it really is. David was his usual radiant self, hosting with ease, shaking hands, pouring wine. I tried to mirror his calm, but my gaze kept finding my sister. She glowed that night. Her dress shimmered just enough, her voice lifted at the right pitch, her smile perfectly timed. She didn't hover near me, no, she hovered near him. Always laughing at his jokes, always stepping in to explain his absences, as though she were the keeper of his secrets. I told myself it was innocent. Sisters protect each other. But Ray, innocence rarely leaves bruises this deep. When the plates were cleared and glasses refilled, She rose with a confidence that didn't belong to someone's bridesmaid of 3 weeks ago. She tapped her spoon against the glass, the clear chime silencing the room with ease. Everyone turned toward her like a congregation waiting for a sermon. She lifted her glass toward David first. "To the future of this family," she said, her eyes lingering on him longer than etiquette demanded. Their glasses clinked, a crisp, intimate sound that seemed to echo louder than mine did when she finally turned to me. People laughed, clapped, some even cheered. To them, it was a joke, a playful toast. But I felt it like a blade sliding quietly between my ribs. It wasn't what she said, it was the order in which she said it. The choice of who came first. The room erupted in joy, but Ray, I tasted only metal. I smiled, of course. What else could I do? No one suspects the bride to sulk at her own dinner. But inside, my stomach knotted. The laughter didn't include me. It circled around me like wolves. I looked at my father then, hoping for rescue, for correction, for a reminder that I wasn't imagining things. But he only nodded, pride painted across his face, as though my sister's closeness to David was something to celebrate. His approval landed heavier than the toast itself. That night, when everyone left, I sat at the edge of my bed in my gown, my shoes still pinching, and wondered if I had imagined it all. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was being ungrateful. Maybe this was how families worked, woven tight, even in ways that sometimes suffocated. But the unease wouldn't leave me. The room was filled with laughter, yet I felt like the ghost at my own table. I didn't realize then, they weren't laughing with me. They were laughing at how little I saw. The hall glittered with chandeliers, flowers spilling over every table, and a crowd dressed in their brightest colors. Laughter rippled, perfumes mingled in the air, and phones hovered like bees ready to capture the sweetness of vows. For a brief moment, I almost believed this was the dream I had held since girlhood. David's eyes met mine. Steady, rehearsed. He held my hand, and I wanted to believe it was love, not performance. The officiant cleared his throat. Silence fell. My heart pounded against my ribs, carrying the weight of every hope I had ever pinned on this day. And then it happened. A voice rose from the pews, sharp enough to slice the veil of perfection. "He promised me first." Gasps erupted like gunfire. Heads turned. My bouquet slipped slightly in my grip, the stems wet against my trembling palm. My mind screamed it must be a mistake until I saw her. My sister. She stood tall, her face flushed, her jaw set. Not ashamed. Not hesitant. Defiant. Her words still hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. The hall fractured instantly. Some clutched their pearls, others muttered under their breath. Children were pulled close to mothers' sides as though betrayal could be contagious. Phones rose higher, recording every second. My father shifted uncomfortably, his expression unreadable. My mother stared at her shoes. David's face drained of color. "She's lying," he rasped, his voice desperate but thin. He looked from me to her and back again, his eyes wild, like a man trapped with no exit. "She's not lying," a guest shouted from the back. Another gasped, "Oh my God, did you hear that?" And then voices layered, disbelief, anger, curiosity, the room spinning into chaos. Through it all, Ray, I didn't move. Stillness wrapped me like armor. I turned slowly, looked my sister in the eye, then let my gaze settle back on David. His fingers twitched against the ring he wore, the gold band catching the light. My voice rose, calm but cutting, sharp enough to hush the room again. "Then whose ring is on his hand?" Silence. The question didn't need an answer. The evidence was already gleaming in plain sight. Phones zoomed in, capturing the detail. Guests exchanged glances, whispers hissing like snakes. My sister's confidence wavered, her lips parting but no words forming. David staggered, his mouth opening and closing, but nothing came out. The officiant stammered, This isn't," before giving up entirely. The ceremony had collapsed beyond saving. In that moment, Ray, I felt something snap inside me. The fairy tale I had clung to for years disintegrated in front of 200 witnesses. But instead of breaking, I felt cold clarity flood me. That was the night I stopped being his wife and started being their witness. The hall was still buzzing from my sister's outburst when she stepped forward, crimson lips trembling, but her voice slicing through the silence like glass. "You all think he belongs to her," she pointed at me, then at David. "But I know what he smells like after midnight. I know the words he whispers when no one's listening. And I know the hotel room number he books every time he says he's working late." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Guests craned their necks like they were watching a stage play, phones tilted higher, fingers tightening around their champagne stems. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. David's eyes flared wide. He slammed his hand against the table, making cutlery jump. "She's lying. She's obsessed with me, Ray. She's always wanted to destroy us." His voice cracked, the polished calm he wore like a second skin breaking apart in front of everyone. "She's jealous. That's all this is, jealousy." The more he shouted, the more he drowned. His words scattered like broken glass. His hands shook, his face gleamed with sweat. He looked less like the man I married and more like a boy caught stealing bread in the market. I didn't shout. I didn't tremble. Instead, I lifted the black folder I had carried all evening. My shield, my weapon. My voice was steady, though my pulse drummed against my ribs. "She's not lying about everything," I said. Heads whipped toward me. "Because I've seen the accounts. I've seen the transfers. While you two were whispering love stories, David was plotting to empty mine." The room stilled. I opened the folder and spread the pages across the table where the chandelier light kissed the signatures. Offshore accounts. Wire transfers. Even a one-way ticket booked to Dubai under another name. Their plan was simple. Strip me of every cent, every property, every piece of dignity. And then vanish. The silence broke into chaos. Guests gasped, some cursed under their breath, others clutched pearls and phones alike. "Jesus," someone cried from the back. Another muttered, "So this is what marriage has become?" David lunged at the folder, panic surging through him like a storm. "You forged those." She forged them. His eyes were wild, darting from face to face, searching desperately for one ally in the sea of condemnation. And then he found one. My father. Slowly, deliberately, my father rose from his seat. His chair scraped the marble floor with a screech that cut through the noise. For a moment, I thought he would shield me. That the man who once taught me to ride a bicycle, who held my hand at graduations, would finally stand with me. But his words were poison wrapped in calm. "Enough," he said. His deep voice carried weight, silencing whispers. "She doesn't understand. This is family business. Your sister has only been protecting your marriage. And David," he gestured toward him with open palms, "David is the future of this family. We cannot destroy him with foolish outbursts." The crowd gasped again, louder than before. A woman dropped her wine glass, crimson liquid spreading across the white cloth like blood. My own breath caught. "Ray, it was not just my husband. Not just my sister. It was my father too." And he didn't stop. "I signed the contracts," he continued, voice steady, as if confessing was logical. "The land transfers, the investments, they're in David's name now. I did it for our bloodline. For security. Your marriage was the bridge, and David is the man who will carry us across." Whispers surged like wildfire. "Her own father," someone murmured. "Did you hear that?" another gasped, hand pressed to her chest. Even my mother's face paled, her hands trembling as she clutched her scarf. I stood frozen, my heart breaking in new ways I hadn't thought possible. Betrayed by love. Betrayed by blood. Betrayed by the very roof that was supposed to protect me. David straightened, relief flickering across his face now that someone had spoken on his behalf. He smirked, emboldened. "You see? Even your father knows the truth. You've always been too fragile to handle the weight of real business." What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had been preparing for this very moment. That's when I learned, Ray, betrayal is never lonely. It breeds in pairs, in trios, in whole families. Ray, when the ballroom descended into murmurs and the air was thick with humiliation, I did not scream. I did not collapse. Instead, I stood very still, my champagne glass balanced delicately in my hand. Because I knew what no one else knew, the game had ended long before this night. David's face was a mask of panic. My sister clung to his arm like someone realizing too late that the ship she boarded was already sinking. My father's silence was worse than words, his chin raised, his eyes cold, as though the shame belonged to me and not them. They were never my losses, I said, my voice carrying like a judge's verdict. Only illusions. David broke then. His knees buckled, his head dropped into his hands, and his sobs echoed in the silence of the hall. My sister collapsed beside him, her mascara streaking, her dream of stealing my life dissolving into shame. And my father, for the first time, his shoulders slumped. Powerless. Exposed. But I wasn't finished, Ray. You see, I continued, addressing the mesmerized crowd, while they were busy plotting to steal my inheritance, I was busy protecting it. 6 months ago, I moved every asset they thought they had access to into accounts they'll never touch. Every property deed they thought they were claiming, already transferred to trusts with my name alone. The crowd was on its feet now, some applauding, others gasping in amazement. This wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was the most spectacular downfall they'd ever witnessed. David, I called sweetly, that Dubai apartment you and my sister were planning to share? The one you thought was paid for with my money? It never existed. Those investors you met with? Actors I hired. That business deal in the Caymans? A beautiful fiction. His face went ashen as understanding dawned. Maya, I turned to my sister, who was sobbing uncontrollably. Those romantic getaways you thought you were stealing? Those hotel rooms you bragged about knowing? I was paying for every single one. Not because I was blind, because I was building evidence. The revelation hit the room like a physical force. Guests were recording everything, knowing they were witnessing something that would be talked about for years. And Papa, I said finally, looking at my father with something that might have been pity, those contracts you signed so proudly? Those investments you thought would secure our family's future? Every document was a forgery. You handed David nothing but worthless paper. My father's legs nearly gave out. The man who thought he was orchestrating a master plan had been dancing to my tune all along. You destroyed your relationships, your reputations, and your honor for absolutely nothing, I announced to the silent ballroom. You were never going to steal my life, because I was always 5 steps ahead of you. The whispers swelled around me, not pity now, but awe. They thought I was their victim, but I had buried them in their own lies. As I stood there in my wedding dress, surrounded by the wreckage of their schemes, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, complete, perfect freedom. They lost love, wealth, and honor. I only lost illusions. And illusions are the easiest things to let go.